Hi, grade 6. Welcome back to Nelson Math Chapter 2, Getting Started. For this chapter, our goals are going to be related to numeracy. By the end of this, you will be able to read, write, and compare numbers beyond 100,000, rename large numbers, communicate solutions to problems, and read, write, estimate, and compare decimal thousandths. So to review some of our previous work that we've done in previous grades, number 1, write each number in words. I've rewritten it on this side over here. So A is 10,203. The 10,000 from the 10,000 column and the 1,000 column, the 100 column, the tens column, and the ones column. 1B, 37,123. Please note that there is no and in any of these numbers. So for example, part B is not 37,123. It's just 37,123. Later on in the chapter, we're going to see where to use and. Number 2, write each number. Sketch or describe base 10 blocks to model each number. Circle the model for the greater number. So for 2A, I've written the numbers here. You'll notice that I've used two different formats. I've used the format where you leave a space after every 3-period set of digits. So we see here the 21,014, there's a space between the 1 and the 0. In this 21,014, I put a comma between the 1 and the 0. These are two very common ways, very common formats to write numbers. There are others as well, and those are valid. I would also accept those too. As long as we are consistent and we know how we're using them, everything will be fine. That's okay. 2B, 13,205. I've written them down here. So in this model, we're using the space before the 205, and in this model, we're using the comma before the 205. To sketch these or describe them, we would need 21 thousands blocks. The 10 blocks would be 1, and 4 of the singles. So that's what we would need there. And similarly for 13,205, we would need 13 of the 1,000s, 2 of the 100s, and 5 of the ones. And the larger number would be the one that starts with 21,000, in this case A. 3 is written down here. So here we have 0.23. That's how we could state the numbers, but to give it a name, we're going to call it 23 hundredths. The 2 is in the tenths column. The 3 is in the hundredths column. So we're going to call this 23 hundredths. We can also call it 2 tenths, 3 hundredths. For number 3B, that's 4 tenths. And for 3C, the 1.02 is 1 whole and 2 hundredths. Because we have numbers on both sides of the decimal, we have the whole number, which is 1, and then to the right side of the decimal, we have the decimal numbers, the parts. So we call this 1 whole and 2 hundredths. Here's number 4. This grid right here. Write a decimal that is equivalent to 0.4. Draw a picture to represent it on a 10 by 10 grid. I'm starting by writing down that 0.4 is equivalent to 0.40. So we can call this number here, the 0.4, we could call it 4 tenths. If we call it 4 tenths and we look at this grid right here, we could imagine that this grid has only 10 columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way down the line. Ignore the horizontal lines here just for a moment, because if we looked at this as having 10 columns, then 1, 2, 3, 4 of these columns are currently highlighted. That's 4 of the 10, or 4/10. That's where the 0.4 appears. However, to show how this is equivalent, I can now use these horizontal lines. I can go across, and I can now say that this column rather, has 10 smaller squares in it. This column has 10 smaller squares in it. So if I added up or counted all of these squares on the inside, there would be 100 of them. If there are 100 of these squares, 40 of which are highlighted, then I can call that 40 over 100, or 40 hundredths. And that's where this number comes in, 40 hundredths. And that's our review, our getting started for Chapter 2, Grade 6. By all means, please review this again if necessary so that you're ready for Section 2.1. Thanks. Have a good day.